Hey guys, so today we're doing a Letterboxd recap. I always forget to actually link my Letterboxd account, so I'm going to remember to do that in the description. If I forget, please comment, but follow me on Letterboxd if you want to keep up with these ratings as I watch them. I pretty much rate them immediately. But today is obviously for the month of April. It was a pretty solid month of movies. I went to the theater so many times in the month of April. Ironically, I am not reviewing any of the movies that I actually saw in the theaters, but they just weren't horror movies, so what are you gonna do? But I will mention them and talk a little bit about them. So before we get into the video though, I just wanna thank my favorite jewelry company in the world, Ita Love, for sponsoring today's video. I'm so excited they wanted to sponsor a video. You may notice the jewelry that I wear in most of my videos. I tend to wear a lot of rings. I'm a ring gal, and necklaces, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to be from Ita Love. They just have the best quality of jewelry that I've ever discovered in my life, and I have so many. My ring collection is huge, and these are by far my favorite. They also have so many styles that I am obsessed with. Their tarot collection, I'll show you a little bit of that. My latest obsession, I have had my eye on this ring for months and months. It is the Emperor ring. It is so stunning. I also recently picked up the Enchantress ring, which has a stone in there. It is so beautiful. And also my newest necklace from them is the dandelion necklace, which is so beautiful. I love dandelions. I've always been drawn to them. They're the only plant that represents the 3 celestial bodies, the sun, the moon, and the stars in all 3 of its stages. So Ita Love has been so generous to host a giveaway for my viewers. So if you want to win a $500 gift card to Ita Love, all you have to do is leave a comment on this video and click the link in the description to sign up for their mailing list. Everyone who signs up for the mailing list gets a $25 gift card automatically, and you'll be entered to win the $500 gift card. Okay, so let's get into all of the movies that I watched in the month of April. Like I said, it was a great month. I rewatched a lot of things, such as the first one, Old. I think it was just really hot that day, felt like summer vibes. I just wanted to watch a beachy summer movie, and Old is just now one of my go-tos for that. Studio Ghibli Studios was doing a theatrical release for their anniversary, so they are showing a lot of, well, all of the Studio Ghibli movies, I believe, in theaters, at least where I live. So my partner and I went and saw Princess Mononoke. Beautiful, beautiful movie. Absolutely love it. 5 stars. Love Princess Mononoke. I'm personally very excited to go watch Spirited Away later this year. The next 3 movies I rewatched for the sake of my tech horror video, so if you want my thoughts more in depth on these next 3 movies, definitely go check out that video. But I watched Stay Alive, I rewatched that one, Pulse, and One Missed Call. Okay, so the first movie that I really want to get into and talk about is called Dark Places. Now this is streaming on Hulu and is based on the book by Gillian Flynn. So this follows Libby Day, who was the sole survivor of her family murders, and she begins confronting the memories of her mother and sister's murders while investigating the possibility that her brother might actually be innocent. So I read the book by Gillian Flynn in the month of April and obviously decided to watch the movie. Let me just say, it is no Gone Girl. And this movie was so bad. Like, just on a movie level, it was pretty bad. I don't want to say it was so bad. It was fine. It was just not my thing. I think Dark Places might be one of those movies where it might be better having not read the book, which isn't really a good sign. Like, you want a good film adaptation for a book that you really like, because I rated the book like 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not 100% sure that Gillian Flynn is an author for me. Like, I enjoyed it and everything, but more than her writing, I really like her storytelling. I think her stories are really unique and original, and the way she writes her characters. But her writing in general is not my favorite. But I will do a whole in-depth review for Dark Places, the novel, in my next book reading update video, which hopefully should be very soon. But not a huge fan of the movie. The movie was pretty bad. I think just even if you didn't read the novel, I don't know if it would be any better, because the pacing of this movie and the way the story pans out just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just weird. It's weird editing, weird storytelling. I'm not sure about this movie. It's just not good. Next, I rewatched Disturbia. Every time the weather gets a little bit warmer, I always crave a Disturbia rewatch. I think it just has to do with that this movie feels very summery to me. It's just like a great summertime thriller movie. But mostly it's just a fun movie. I find it to be, obviously it's not very heavy. It does have some mild horror elements, but I wouldn't say it's super horrific or anything, but I really like the story. I think it's kind of goofy at times. I just really love Disturbia. Next up, I rewatched Grave Encounters, and just a little PSA, Shudder now has both Grave Encounters movies on there, so you're welcome. And I finally tracked down Grave Encounters DVD for $10, which sounds like a lot for a pre-owned DVD, but let me tell you, some people charging $30 for Grave Encounters. I'm not sure if it's out of print or they just don't make the DVDs anymore, but I finally found it, so now I own both on DVD. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is The Dropout, which is on Hulu. This, of course, follows the Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos scandal that happened, I think back in like 2015 or something. I had briefly mentioned it in my March Letterboxd recap, but I obviously had not finished the show at that point, but I did finish the show this month, and oh my gosh, you need to watch The Dropout. It was so captivating. From episode 1, I was never bored, nothing dragged on. It's one of my favorite new series based in reality or based on a true story. I think Amanda Seyfried was so incredible in this series, and I honestly really had my doubts going into episode 1 because I didn't think she really looked like Elizabeth Holmes or acted like her, but then throughout the show, she just evolved into Elizabeth Holmes and was so convincing at capturing her awkwardness and her deep voice and her bizarre expressions and just everything. It was just, that is Elizabeth Holmes. So if you have yet to watch The Dropout, not a horror by any means, but just a drama show, but it is so incredible and not enough people are talking about it. Also, I'm currently watching The Girl from Plainville, which is obviously a little bit more heavier, that is a true crime show, but it is starring Elle Fanning, again based in reality, dramatized scenes and whatnot, but apparently it's pretty accurate to the character and like how things went down. But man, Hulu has a lot of great series out right now, so Hulu is really where it's at. They have great movies going on right now, they have great series, just Hulu, you're doing great. Next, I watched a movie that is a Shudder exclusive called See For Me. Again, I briefly mentioned it in a previous video this month. This follows a young blind woman who is hired to cat sit for a wealthy woman when a group of men decide to break in and rob the home. This was a solid movie. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It didn't really stand out. There wasn't anything too special about it, but on an entertainment level, it was really good. It does have amazing suspense, but it does lean a little bit more towards thriller suspense than real horror, I would say. But if you're a fan of home invasion, then you would definitely like this movie. It has that going for it, and also like that sense of dread because the main character is blind. So if you also liked Hush, it's a very similar concept. It's definitely been done before in different ways, you know, not necessarily a blind woman, you know, having the home being broken into, like that's kind of unique and original in a way. Well, Don't Breathe also exists, but I think that's a little bit different. I don't know, it's just not that unique, but unique enough, and it's entertaining, so I recommend it. Next up, I watched a movie on Tubi called Deadwear, and this was actually a recommendation from Mandy Morg87 on TikTok. I saw her video on this and immediately knew I was going to watch this movie. So this is set in the late 90s and follows two friends who discover webcams and play around with it until their fun and games are interrupted by a mysterious browser game. Now, this is another one of those tech horror movies that take place completely on the computer screen, so it's filmed via the webcam. So you're getting like the computer monitor visual. However, it is set in the late 90s, so it's very dated in that sense. I don't think the technology was very accurate. I'm not sure what it was about it. I just don't think webcams were becoming that popular. I mean, granted, they kind of addressed that whole thing in the movie, but to me the technology and the characters and their like personas just didn't feel dated. It didn't have that nostalgic feel that this movie probably should have. There was some nostalgia in there with the internet and the AIM and things like that, so I appreciated those things. For being such a low budget independent movie, it wasn't terrible. I don't think I would rewatch it or recommend it to everyone, but if you like Unfriended, this is like a milder version of that because there's only two characters. This is like the low budget Unfriended, and Unfriended was actually low budget too, so it's even lower budget than Unfriended. I mean, I didn't feel bored. That's not really a compliment because I think you shouldn't feel bored watching most things. But it wasn't terrible. It wasn't fantastic or really original or anything like that. But if you are looking for kind of a hidden gem and more tech horror, then check out Deadwear on Tubi. And it's free and short, so you don't really have much to lose. Okay, then I watched the best movie of the month and of the year. I'm gonna say it. Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm not gonna review it. It's not a horror movie, but everything you've heard about this movie is accurate. It is true. This will be the best movie of the year. I don't know how anything could possibly top this movie. It's done by the Daniels, who also made Swiss Army Man, which is one of my favorite A24 movies of all time. I absolutely love that movie. This felt very similar in tone to that. Like, it felt like a Daniels movie, so if you're a fan of that one. Everything Everywhere is just magnificent. It was the most entertaining theater experience I have ever had in my whole life. Like, the most entertaining movie I've ever seen, probably. Horror and not horror. Like, this movie is so much fun. I was sobbing. It was such a roller coaster. It is so wild. Please go watch it. I shouldn't spend this much time talking about it, but I have to because this movie is incredible and will probably be my favorite movie of the year, even though it's not a horror. Okay, then I watched Choose or Die. I did a whole full review on that movie, so I will link that up here. Then I decided to check out The Rental, which is on Netflix. I think it was newly added to Netflix, but it is, I believe, from 2020 or something like that. So it's not like super new of a movie, but I had never seen it and pretty much never really heard about it until I saw the thumbnail on Netflix. So this follows two couples as they visit a rental home near the ocean when they begin to get a little suspicious of their host possibly spying on them. So this was produced and directed by Dave Franco, and it is his directorial debut. This is a very slow burn thriller movie. It has very few horror elements. However, I will say I was kind of disturbed with some of the scenes happening in this movie. I think it has to do with the fact that a lot of this felt realistic. Like, the characters were very realistic. The acting was great. So I could really picture all of these things happening, and because the slow gradual build of tension, once there is violence, it is quite disturbing. Maybe it's just me. I don't want to say it's a disturbing movie by any means, but the violence did get me and the ending got me, so it was good. So if you like a slower paced thriller movie that feels very realistic, something that could actually happen, just like a series of unfortunate events, if you will, then this movie would be for you. It is a slow burn though, so just keep that in mind. Then I watched the new Robert Eggers movie, The Northman. Not a horror movie, although horror elements. There was a lot of gore in this, a lot of violence, very brutal movie. I really liked The Northman. I think it's up there with The Witch for me. You guys know how I feel about The Lighthouse. Not a fan. So Robert Eggers was really hit or miss for me before going into The Northman, so I was not sure where it was gonna fall because he loves a period piece. I was hoping it would lead more towards The Witch and be kind of similar to that filmmaking and not super artsy-fartsy like in The Lighthouse. It's for some people, it's not for me. But The Northman was amazing. I really, really enjoyed this one and probably will be up there with some of my favorite A24 movies of all time. It was really, really good. So the last movie I'm going to talk about that I watched in the month of April is a doozy. So stick with me. It's a heavy one, but it's been requested a lot. I finally watched it. I finally watched Incident in a Ghostland, sometimes also called just Ghostland. I don't even know how to describe the plot on this one. Let's give it a try. This follows a horror writer who returns to the home where her mother and sister still live after a traumatic event that happened 16 years prior. However, once reunited, things take a bizarre turn. All I knew about this movie going in is that people were disturbed by it. I didn't know how bad, I didn't know how much. I actually was propelled to watch it finally because I did find out that there wasn't any like SA scenes, you know what I mean, like assault scenes. That was really what was holding me back because I hear disturbing and for some reason I automatically think of that, which is not always accurate because Mother, Martyrs, movies exist that are very highly disturbing, Hereditary, that don't have scenes like that. So I'm not sure why I didn't make that connection, but I heard from one of you guys telling me that this wasn't bad in that sense, just really disturbing, you know, in other ways. Now, disturbing horror and extreme horror typically are not my thing. They're not ones I really enjoy. I am planning a whole video on movies, horror movies that I liked, but will never rewatch again because they're disturbing. Let me know if that sounds like a good idea. You'll probably know some of them already that are gonna be on there, but Probably some of them you don't. Now, I didn't know until about halfway through watching Ghostland that it's actually done by the same director who did the original Martyrs, the French movie, because this one is a Canadian movie, I believe, or American, one of those two. So I was really surprised to see that he was the one who actually did this one as well. And that got me a little nervous because Martyrs, as you know, is one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen. Love it. Love it. It's a very powerful movie. I always recommend it, but it's a one-time watch, you know? And that is what this one is. This one's a one-time watch for me. I have very conflicting feelings about Incident in a Ghostland. I feel like it's a little exploitative in other ways than just super disturbing, like, content. Firstly, it's wild. Absolute roller coaster. Like, you will never know where this movie is going, what direction it's going, what's gonna happen next. You will never predict it. I was so confused so many times, and then when everything fell together, I was like, oh my God, like, they go there, like, wow. But there are some issues with it that I just can't really get past. For one, there seems to be some transphobia going on, and I haven't seen a lot of people even mention that or talk about it. I just see a lot of people praising this movie, that they love it a lot, one of their favorite movies. But the transphobia thing really got me, not a fan of that. Also, the use of mental illness for horror purposes, not really a fan of that, as you know. So those two things, not great, not good in my opinion. And without those things, it really could have been great. I think those two things are added in for disturbing factors, and it just is not going to be effective for me personally, so that didn't add anything to the story. It didn't make it feel any more messed up because of the portrayals of these people. So I think if they had withheld that and just had different characters, I'm not sure. I wasn't a fan of those things, and it could have been amazing without them. I know a lot of you do love this movie. I gave it 3 stars. However, I will not be rewatching this. It is disturbing, probably as much as people say it is. However, I do find Martyrs more disturbing, but it's similar in the elements of being disturbing as it is to Martyrs. So if that's something that affects you, this is very similar in tone to that. It's just very brutal and tragic and just like heavy, just so heavy. And it does get intense. However, like I mentioned, there aren't any graphic scenes or anything. I think there's implied SA and assault and things, but nothing that we actually ever see on screen, which is great. I really respect that he doesn't push the boundaries like that in his extreme films and his exploitation films, because he easily could, but I appreciate that he holds back on those things. I do recommend it, but just be warned for those things that are in there that I don't like, and it is disturbing. So if you're looking for a more extreme horror or a little bit more disturbing, then check out Ghostland. So there you have everything that I watched in the month of April. I would love to know what your favorite thing is that you watched in April, and anything that you want me to talk about in May, and what you want me to watch and cover at the end of May in my next Letterboxd recap. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.